Folks, I want to thank you for coming today and being our guest here. And we're going to show you some things that we've learned over the last 50 years that hopefully will help your practice of real estate. There was something that I learned that was just shocking to me after I went to Missouri Auction School back in 1990, and that was that all realtors in Florida, all real estate agents, all licensees, period, that had a real estate license could sell real estate at auction, but nobody does it. Less than 1% of the realtors, real estate licensees in Florida utilize the auction method of marketing. I'm going to tell you a quick story about how we got started with it, because if you can see this, it could change your dynamics of your real estate practice. Okay, for instance, about 3 winters ago, we had a listing over on the island backing up to the marsh, and it was a house. It was a brick house, but it was a real mess. It was in an estate, and the people wouldn't clean it up, and so Jim Brody, an agent with me, he came to me, and he'd been with me a long time. He said, Terry, I'm going to drop that listing. He said, that listing, nobody's shown it in MLS, and no realtor's shown it in 6 months. And I said, well, I don't really blame you, but before you do that, let's go over on Anastasia Boulevard and put out some auction signs, and you go sit at the house and do an open house. Well, it was so cold, open house meant sit in the car and run the heater, all right, which he was negative about it, and I was too, but I went over there with him. We put up the signs, and he came in here on Monday morning with a completely different attitude. He said, "Dadgum, he said, I had 5 or 6 people through that house over the weekend." He said, that house hadn't been shown in 6 months. He said, people came there, they wanted to know when was the auction. What are you selling? When is the auction? So that led us into something in 6 weeks, he showed it to 71 people. 71 people. Well, when you put an auction sign out or you advertise auctions, you're going to have an auction. So typically our thought was we would have a live auctioneer, but when you get a seller that won't invest any upfront money for marketing, it's hard to do a live auction. You're just not going to have much success with it. So we decided that we would build a sealed bid auction. A sealed bid auction, anybody can open an envelope, and so we put together a sealed bid auction program, which is what we are studying today. So primarily you're going to end up with a sealed bid. We're going to talk about the different possibilities of auction. He not only attracted 71 people in that 6 weeks period, he sold his own listing. So the listing that he was going to give up, that there was no activity on, he actually sold it himself. So he retained the listing, made the sale, and of course, our agents make twice as much if they sell one of the company properties. So that was his own listing. So we thought, my goodness, this is all like magic. This is incredible, So myself, if I was going to put my house on the market tomorrow, the very first thing I would do, not the last, the first thing I would do is put it up for auction. And here's what happens. Here's why I would do it. If you have a listing like he did, what he did, and all up and down the streets, everything was for sale and the market was crashing, he sucked the literal ether out of that marketing for everybody. Those signs brought the people to that house that had been riding by that house. It hadn't been shown in 6 months, okay? And all of a sudden the realtors could find it. What was happening was the customers were going by there and seeing the house at auction, and they were calling their realtor and said, Passetti and them's got an auction going on down there. What are they doing? When is the auction? So we would get all these calls, and all of a sudden people were showing the house. So he went over there and posted a sign at the door, said, I'll be open house at a certain time. He left the open house signs out, and he left that sign out, call for private showing, which he did. He had a lot of calls, had a lot of showings during the week, and on every weekend he would go over there for a couple hours on Saturday and a couple hours on Sunday, and he would do open houses. And so we saw that really worked. Well, I had a woman here that's been with me for 32 years, and she and I put together this book called Auctions of the Week, plural. And the Auctions of the Week program is designed to teach real estate agents how to utilize the auction method of marketing in their real estate marketing. And if they don't utilize it, they're just wasting a lot of energy and a lot of money. So we soon realized that we could attract more people to these open houses by utilizing those two signs on the back wall. Open house and auction are the best signs I've ever seen. If you'll use those two signs consistently, that color sign, we chose that color auction sign because it's the best color we've ever seen. It's everything we come up with. You can put it down the street and you can put the real estate sign right next to it. You'll see the auction sign a half a mile before you can read the other sign. You'll see it. So then after I got through writing this book, I went to our board of realtors and I said, I'd like to teach the realtors this course. And I'd like to do it. I just want to see if I'm the only one that thinks auctions is such a great idea. So I went to I taught it to, it was about 25 of them signed up to take the class. And at the break, after the first 3 hours, the lady came up to me and she said, Terry, can I refer you a listing? And I said, on the Intercoastal Waterway? I said, sure. And I'm thinking, didn't you just sit in this class? Why don't you do it yourself, you know? And but found out later, a broker wouldn't let her. So for somewhat unknown reason. But anyway, she brought me that listing. We went over and met with the lady. The lady's name was Terry also. She lived in a really nice house on the Intercoastal Waterway. She listed it with us, and we went out. I bought 100 of those auction signs, and we built a trail right to that house down by the Crescent Beach Bridge. We built a big sign and put up on the dock out there so you could see it from the Crescent Beach Bridge. And lady was a widow, and I told her, do not go to the door, don't let anybody in. We don't have any idea who these people are that may come here off the sign. So later that afternoon, she called me. She said, Terry, I'm out of brochures. I said, oh, some jerk took all those brochures out of that box because it was full. She said, no, Terry, there's been a steady stream of people here all day long. She said, they're walking all around the house, looking everywhere. She said, it's been the most incredible thing I've ever seen. Well, she'd had it listed in MLS with a good real estate company for 9 months, and it had only been shown 2 or 3 times. They had never had an offer on it. 3 weeks, we showed it to 10 qualified people that we got the customer, pre-qualified them, and then took them to the house because she wouldn't let them in. She was so excited about the momentum that we had created compared to anything she'd ever seen. I asked her, I said, Terry, will you come down to the Board of Realtors and when I teach the second half, and we just stand up and tell them exactly what's happened, which she did. She said, guys, y'all had my house listed for 9 months. I never really had a serious looker, had a few showings, never had a real offer. And she said, we've shown it we've shown 10 times in the last 3 weeks. We haven't sold it yet, but I know they're going to sell it because it's just too many good people looking at it. The 4th week we sold it, right? And we started at $775, and we were able to get $715,000 for the house, which I thought was all it was worth at the time. So auctions used in conjunction with our marketing program will enhance our marketing program, and you can take that to the bank. That's a real statement. And so I learned this at Missouri Auction School. I went to Missouri Auction School in 1990 and became an auctioneer. So I'm a licensed Florida auctioneer for whatever that's worth. But we don't do anything but real estate auctions. We don't do the personal property auctions at all. Now, so I want each one of you to zero in on this. This is not just some idea that I had. This is a real tool to what we do as realtors, and it's a professional tool. But until you know what we're going to teach you here, you really couldn't sit down and talk to a seller about it because you wouldn't know what to recommend to them, nor could you conduct an auction. So that's my goal, is to teach you. Now this is about a 6 or 8 hour course, so it's going to take us 2 or 3 weeks to go through it. So I hope you'll bear with me and come back. If you miss one, you're going to miss a lot. So come back and we're going to get started here.
Just click. Hit space.
Okay. When we were at Missouri Auction School, they had us in a big cattle barn, you know, where they sold cattle. And it was a fascinating. It was 115 or 20 of us there. And we were all trying to learn how to talk fast, you know. Supposedly auctioneers have to talk fast. And so they gave us this song, and this is something that if you say it a few times, you'll wear yourself out doing it because it's a lot of fun. It said, Betty bought her song. Betty bought some butter, but she said her butter's bitter. If I put it in my batter, it will make my batter bitter. So Betty bought a bit of better butter, put it in her bitter batter, made her bitter batter bitter. Okay, can we do that one? So Betty, come on. Betty bought some butter, but she said her butter's bitter. If I put it in my batter, it will make my batter bitter. So Betty bought a bit of better butter, put it in her bitter batter, made her bitter batter better. All right, play with that one for a while. All right. The desired results. What are our motives and expectations of this course? My motive is to teach you how to utilize the auction method of marketing in your daily real estate routine. Notice I said daily, not on some big occasion. We all relate real estate auctions to a ballroom or an on-site auction where you got lots and lots of people and so forth. But we're talking about how to use it on a daily basis to provide a valuable service to your sellers and to your buyers. It doesn't work in locations. It's just more difficult when you get into areas like gated communities and so forth where you can't use the signs, and of course you got to augment that with advertising. So we're proponents of doing it as inexpensive as possible. The desired obtain how and when to use the auctions. When do you use an auction? Every day. When do you have an auction? Every Wednesday. We have an auction today at 11 o'clock if we receive any sealed bids. Right now we don't have any, so we don't have any to open. But when is the auction? The auction is today. When is the next auction? It is next week. What happens if I don't sell the property? It's next week. It's next week. It's next week. It's an ongoing, continuous marketing opportunity is what it is. It's an incredible thing when you think about it. That's what we kept on changing it until we massaged it until we got it to where it works, right? To where you can use it every week. So that's what we're going to talk about. How and when to use the auctions. How to explain to the customers. The customers were coming on site. When we first started this, I went and did one in St. Augustine South. Well, one of the companies here had 11 houses, open houses in St. Augustine South subdivision. They had a big ad in the newspaper. I go there at St. Augustine South in the fourth entrance, and I built a trail with signs to the house, which wasn't far. Next thing you know, I had cars lined up all down the street, and people were coming, and they were getting their brochures, and they were walking around. And the sign says auction, it doesn't say what you're selling. Okay, of course we had a real estate sign there, but people were getting their brochures. A lady comes over to me and she says, tell me about this auction. When is the auction? I said, well, the auction's next week in our office, next Wednesday. And she said, yeah. And she said, I've been watching this house for a long time. Finally it came on the market and I saw y'all's sign. She said, we're really interested. I said, well, go in the house. By this time I had people ganged around. I said, go in the house, take a look. If you're interested, come back out, and I'll ask you some questions, and I'll answer yours. So the qualifying question, you can write this down. This is the qualifying question, okay, is will you be paying cash or will you need a mortgage to purchase? Okay. Now remember that. Will you be paying cash or will you need a mortgage to purchase? Why did I ask that question? The question is this: if they're paying cash, they're welcome to submit any kind of offer they want to. An offer, they can submit a bid, to seal a bid, they can do it any way they want to. But if they have to get a mortgage, the seal bid that we had designed for that won't work because it's cash and close in 30 days. People have to put up a 10% deposit and they lose it if they don't close, you see. And so what that did is created an urgency. It created a reason why people would do it. So my suggestion to the lady was, write your contract. If it's accepted by the seller before next Wednesday, I will cancel the auction or take any other offers or bids I get as backups. All right? She said, no, I have to have a mortgage. I said, well, then we have to do it. We have to do it the realtor way. We just have to write a contract, and we did. So anyway, guys, I went to the Florida chapter 475. And I wanted y'all to see this because, and you can't hardly see it up there, but I want you to see it. One of the things that we are allowed to do with our license is auction real estate. Okay, our real estate license does not authorize us to sell this chair or this table or none of this. or that television, but what it does authorize us to do is sell real estate. Less than 1% of the realtors in Florida use auction method of marketing whatsoever. When they hear the word auction, they grab the phone and call some auction company instead of being able to do it themselves. And the question was, why don't more realtors use this system? And the answer is, there's been no training ever. I went to the Florida Association of Realtors with this. There's never been any training for the realtors of Florida put out by the Florida Association of Realtors to teach them how to utilize the auction method of marketing. They think you have to do it in conjunction with some auctioneer or auction company, and that's not true. My goal here is to teach you, do it yourself. Be a professional, do it yourself. Learn how to do it right. So that's where the authorization is in that, and we'd be glad to pass that along to you. Why auctioning? Here's what our auctioning will do. It'll improve your sales performance. Absolutely. Absolutely. If it didn't do it, I wouldn't sit here 49 years into this business and even broach the subject. It'll get your listings noticed. You got dull listings? Go stick some auction signs on it. Okay? Go create the auction method with it. It's not difficult to implement in addition to your listing, and it's a sealed bid. Auctions can be run concurrently. Question was, you can only have one live auction at a time. How many sealed bid auctions can we have in this office every Wednesday? 1, 10, 20, 40, 100, 1,000? It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't matter, you see, because the auction itself is a sealed bid auction, and we're just going to open sealed bids. If we have any sealed bids, we're going to open them, and that's how it works. So, great way to solicit banks for foreclosure listings. Okay, all that's true. Now, here's what happens to us as realtors. We invariably get people that, in short sales, for instance, we learned that we could do this in short sales. We can do this with anything. The short sale is a conditional program because you've got to, one of the contingencies in it has to be, even in your, and we even covered it in our seal bid package, was the idea that you would have a short sale, that the bank would be the deciding factor. And so you can cover all that. You can structure it however you want to. Remember, as a Florida realtor, you are already authorized by law to act as auctioneer to sell real property at public auction. Guess what? So can the people sell their own house at auction. All right? Now, we as realtors, we don't tell everybody that, but the fact is that's the truth. They can sell their own house at auction. All right. The types of auctions. Guys, you got to get this down. If you can understand this to where you can sit down and talk to a seller or a buyer about this, then you can do your job. For instance, absolute auction means just what it says. Absolute means absolute. When the gavel is dropped, the highest bidder wins. The seller is required to sell at this price plus the buyer's premium and possibly other specific conditions. Now that says a lot, but what you're saying there is the buyer, if you bid $100,000 and in the brochures and in the instructions there's a 10% buyer's premium, you're going to pay $110,000 for what you just bid in. You're going to pay $10,000, 10% more. All right. If you use the buyer's premium, you don't have to use buyer's premium, but all I'm saying to you is be sure about what you're signing up for if you go to buy something at auction. There's no backing out. The highest bidder is responsible to complete the purchase, and the seller must sell for that price and terms. When the highest bidder puts up their deposit on that, and if they don't close, they lose their deposit. Okay, I mean that's just the way it is. If they put up 10% deposit, they lose their deposit. And the reason for it is it costs a lot of money to run a live absolute auction. It costs a lot. The ideal type of auction is decisive and rewarding. Listen, if all of us had a bunch of live absolute auctions lined up, you're going to get a paycheck. You're going to get it sold, and you're going to get a paycheck. Now, here's what's going on all over, and I can't endorse this necessarily, but believe it, I do believe it. The big auction companies that are doing this are doing absolute auctions all over the country. They're selling these properties for what they believe they're worth. They believe that the highest price at auction is what the property is worth at that market, at that time, in that place, and so forth. Now, that will not work unless you have adequate upfront funding, which to cover it. In your auction brochure, obtain the auction brochure prior to the event. If you go to an auction, now this is a great way to buy real estate. I don't know why more investors don't use it. This is a great way to buy real estate. The people that understand, every week there's an absolute live auction going on at the courthouse. Every week. Did y'all know that? Sometimes 2 times a week, 3 times a week. What that is, they're selling these foreclosures at some absolute price. Well, the banks are bidding them back in a lot of cases, but a lot of people are buying a lot of deals at the courthouse steps. But that's an auction going on. They have a clerk comes out and reads everything and sits there and says, do I have a bid? And get a bid, and I have another bid, and they're having a live auction is what they're having at the courthouse. And the highest bidder is going to get it. Maybe the bank, but the highest bidder is going to get the property. So you got to learn the terms and conditions of every auction. Every auction has its own formula. Helps formulate a strategy useful for both buyers and sellers. Now, the buyer comes and they want to buy. When that gavel hits and they have met all the conditions in that brochure or the statements from the auctioneer at the auction, they bought the property. They have bought it. They have to put it up, and they typically have to close in 30 days. If they don't close in 30 days, they lose their deposit. Right? Now, there's a lot of things that you need to look at in the brochure. You need to read the fine print. For instance, indicates buyer's premium, sales tax, other related costs. Read the fine print. Include all of the instructions and specifics, what type of auction it will be. Okay. What that means is that you get a brochure, and then prior to the auction itself, it's a live auction, the auctioneer will make the latest announcements, which takes precedence over everything else that they've done, including the brochure. So if there's any changes, they'll announce that prior to the auction, and you have to be prepared for that or don't bid. In other words, if that changes your mind about the property or anything about it, then you just don't bid. Now, requirements such as deposits are specific to a particular auction. Auctioneers have their own requirements sometimes. Each one of them has their own standards and their own set of rules and regulations, and that's how you know how to do it. You can go online and find most of this information about properties all over the country. You can go online and type in the word auction, real estate, and you can pick up properties all over. Now, if you Google auction real estate in St. Augustine, we're going to be right up there at the top. Absolute auctions can use both sealed bid and live auction format. What do we mean? You can have a live auction. We can have a live auction. We can have an absolute auction in here every Wednesday. It doesn't have to be a live auction. It can be a sealed bid auction. A lot of your government auctions are sealed bid auctions, and they're selling stuff all over the world all the time with sealed bids. So the sealed bid auction is a big deal. Why is it so important to us? It's so important to us because we can utilize it in our own offices all the time. We can use it in our daily marketing, and that is incredible. Whether you use it absolute or reserve, it doesn't make any difference. Now, you can use it. What does a seller need for absolute auction to provide for their benefit? And the answer to that is they have to put up some pretty serious money up front for marketing. If they don't, it won't work. All right. You have to really do a promotion job to do an absolute auction. If you don't do that, you're going to give somebody's property away. And if you do that, then you're going to be very unpopular. So the whole idea is to do this professionally. To do it professionally, it takes upfront money to do absolute auctions. I wouldn't even consider doing one without, in this market, at least $5,000 up front. I wouldn't do it. When do you get the money? You get it up front. Do you pay for it and then try to collect it back? No. You do it up front, okay? You get the money up front, and you spend the money. You make up a budget. You have to prepare a budget, and you have to sit down and go over it with the seller and show them where you're going to spend the money. And a lot of the money is spent on internet marketing, a lot of it, and a lot of it is spent printed advertising and so forth. Whatever you think that will draw you the biggest crowd. And where do you have the auction? Do you have it on site, Well, that's not a bad idea. Or you're going to just have a sealed bid auction in your office. You have the choices about what you recommend to the seller, but don't take that lightly, because that's a big responsibility that you have to do it right, especially in an absolute auction. So when we say absolute, that's exactly what it means. It means that you're going to sell that property, and you know you're going to sell it when you go there. You're going to get a bid, and you're going to sell that property. And so we as realtors, we get paid commissions, all right? The money that we collect up front for the promotion is not for us. It's to spend on promoting that property. So that is a very important feature of live auctions, period, or any kind of auction if you're going to have an absolute auction. Absolute auction is, if it's properly done, you'll see people lined up. You see it online. You'll see them lined up to buy these properties. Amazing that they can get tons of people out there to make bids and make offers on properties. And we as realtors struggle to get somebody just to go look at a property. And they can draw a crowd of people to take a look. You go out to the courthouse and during the week when they have these foreclosure auctions, and there'll be 15 or 20 people in there that are ready to buy, cash buyers, and we're always looking for cash buyers, and they're out there buying properties left and right all the time. Now, are they doing it just in St. Augustine? No, they're doing it everywhere. So with every good training, there's got to be a little test, right? So here's some do's and don'ts in the business. Do explain to the seller the benefits and consequences of absolute auction. The benefit is you're going to get it sold. The consequences is you may not get what you want, okay? The benefits are benefits and consequences. That you have to do that. You have to explain that to them. And put it in writing, frankly, to protect yourself. CYA every chance you get. And explain the seller will have a definite sale on a specific date and time. They're going to get it sold. We have run across so many. I can tell you that every foreclosure sale that's set up at that courthouse, we could have an auction before the sale and sell the house, okay? Unless it's just so bad that the banks bid it all back in. We could have the auction ourselves. We could be doing it. What in the world are we doing as realtors? Okay, what are we doing that we don't see this, that there's more property being sold out there at the courthouse steps than most of us sell in 6 months? And what is the difference? The difference is that is going to happen, and the people can depend on that. That is going to happen. The banks are going to get the property back. The owner, or somebody's going to buy the property at the courthouse steps, they're going to get the property. But regardless of that, a sale is going to happen. Some transfer is going to happen. It's going to go from the owner back to the bank, or from the owner to the next owner, and the bank will get paid off. Now, all of these aren't foreclosure sales, guys. Some of these sales out there are partition sales. Some of them are not underwater. Some of them have good equities in them, you know. And then others, the banks are willing to discount and take less. You don't know what the bank will take when you go out there to bid. You see, that's why I'm saying you don't have any idea. So they go out there and they start bidding $1,000 on a $200,000 house. $1,000, the bank will bid $5,000. The person will bid $6,000. The bank will bid $10,000. The bid, you know, and they just work it up like that. And then the bank will come in sometime and they'll bid it up high. And then they may bid it at $100,000 on a $200,000 house, and you bid it $101,000. And the bank may walk. You may have bought that $200,000 house for $101,000, but you didn't know that when you went there. You just had to be prepared to buy. They're going to sell it, or the bank's going to get it. It is transferring title. They are transferring title. That is a sale. So I'm just telling you that that's just an idea of a system. Now, here's the good part about it. You can do it yourself. You can do it in this office. You can do it in Sherry's office. You can do it wherever. It doesn't make any difference. You can do it because you're licensed to do it. Upfront advance fee. They must click. It's non-refundable. Give us the money. We're going to spend it. Here's a budget. This is how we're going to spend it. When we're done, we give a reconciliation statement of where we spent it, exactly like we told them. If there's any change in that, we call them up and say, we think something else would work better than what we're doing. And so keep your seller informed. Keep your seller informed all the time. You're getting calls, you're getting this, you're sending out brochures. Send them an email, constantly updating them about what you're doing. Don't promise unrealistic results. Don't tell that seller that they're gonna get 125% of the market value of that house on anything stupid, because you're gonna get caught and for making statements that just don't work. Sign up for any live auctions without adequate funding for marketing. Don't do it. Don't do it. We did it. When I started, I did it. Next thing you know, I had spent thousands of dollars advertising somebody else's property, and when it didn't sell, next thing you know, they take the listing and give it to somebody else. Okay? And so do not put that money up front, is my opinion, because anything can happen. The seller can die before the auction. Anything can happen, and where there isn't any auction, where you know, anything can happen. So don't do it. Don't fail to provide sellers and buyers with a very recent CMA. You got to hang your hat on that one, guys. You got to have good current marketing information. No matter what somebody thinks, you got to have data in your hand to show it to them. Don't plan an auction unless you have at least 2 months from contract sign up to the auction date. Why? Because it takes 2 or 3 weeks just to get things put together. If you're going to do different types of auctions, but if you're going to do a typical live auction, then you've got to have time to prepare the brochure, you've got to have time to put together the advertising budget, you've got to have time for all that, and then you need at least 4 to 6 weeks of advertising time and promotion time and showing time. You want to show that house as all you can. What do you do then? You do open house, open house, open house, open house every chance you get. What happens during the open houses? You meet customers. What are you doing? You're harvesting customers. Is that a good thing? You bet you bippy. That's a good one. Okay? Uh-oh.
Hit the start button for the Windows key. Windows key. And then
Okay.
click in the, yeah, just click up there.
All right. Got to have a little test, right? If you're going to have a course, you got to have a little test. Promise the seller to get 100% of CMA value. True or false? That's probably the biggest mistake that overzealous auctioneers and salesmen make, period, is overpromise and underperforming, and doesn't mean you didn't try. Plan your auction at least 6 months in advance.
False.
That's false. You can't plan anything about the auction that far in advance. Just things change too much. Do all live auctions with adequate marketing funding.
True. True.
Utilize the buyer's premium in every case.
False.
That is a trick question. That's a Florida Real Estate Commission type. That's you can go either way with it. I prefer to use it myself, because what it generally does is help you get the price up. So people will bid up and up and up and up and up, and the first thing you know, that they bid 100,000, but they're really going to pay 106 or 110, whatever the buyer's premium is. And it's a way for us to get paid. It's a way for us to get paid, and it's a way for us to cooperate with other realtors. And so I suggest you do it. There's no reason not to do it, frankly, because people are going to pay what they want it to anyway. CMOs will help you educate the seller about the market while not guaranteeing you any particular price.
True. True.
All right. Now, to stop there for a minute about the absolute auction, I want you to study that, because the absolute auction, if it's done right, is an incredible service. It's also an incredible service for you, because you are going to get paid. You have made a sale if you do it right and you do it professionally. Let me give you the real benefit of any of these auctions if you do it right. You will harvest customers like you will never do in general real estate. You will harvest customers like you've never done. You'll have people come and register, and they have to register to bid. Okay, so you got all of their contact information. So you're harvesting customers, and you're building a list, email list or mailing list or whatever, and that's a huge thing. Now, one of the benefits I think I said to you is that we get a lot of our listings because of it. We get a lot of referrals from other realtors to do it. Here's another type of auction. This is a reserve auction. This is what we primarily do in real estate. protect the seller's investment by establishing a reserve. What does that mean? Here's what happens in every case I've ever seen. John Doe, the realtor, has a property listed and they got it priced at X. We go in and we take a look at the CMA, and the CMA looks pretty good, and the realtor probably did the right thing by pricing at X. But we talk to the seller and we find out that seller really wants to sell. They want to sell that property. Now they're talking to the auction company and they want to sell it. They're listing it's great. I mean, that's just wonderful, but selling it is the bottom line. That is the motive. That's the desired result. In almost every case, we will get that reserve, which is the bottom line price that they're willing to take, which we don't announce to the public. We'll get that reserve way below the listed price or the asking price. Okay, a realistic price. You're going to get a realistic price. You're going to enhance the opportunity to sell that property for that seller, depending on their circumstances. Some people won't cut it a penny, but 99% of them will give you a price that probably works and is worth your effort to do it. All right. So the reserve means this: we reserve the right. The seller reserves the right to accept or reject all bids, and that's a very important statement. Accept or reject any and all bids. That means they don't have to do it. They do not have to do it. We don't announce the reserve to the seller, to the public at all. That is a confidential thing with us and the seller. It's a signed thing that we get it signed, saying that they will take it X number of dollars. Now, do we want to get them more than that? Sure. We represent them. We're out here to get as much as we can. But it's a nice feeling when you get to a certain point, when you got live bidding going on, or even seal bidding going on. When you reach that reserve, you realize you have made a sale. Okay? And now, in live auctions, once you reach the reserve, you can announce that, or you don't have to announce it. You can just not say anything about it, and you can keep on going. And because typically what happens is once you meet the reserve, it's absolute from there on out. In other words, it's sold. Anybody that bids $1 above that gets to be the owner of that property, and you've protected your seller. Auction brochure will indicate and auctioneer will announce types of auctions. Guys, every auction you look at, every brochure you look at it and see what it says. Does it say reserve? Does the seller reserve the right to accept or reject any and all bids? That's a reserve auction. Does it say absolute? What does it say? And that's how you make your determination about how to utilize that brochure and that information for your benefit. You see, and that's how you do it. Reserve is established contractually between the owner and the seller and the auctioneer. It's confidential. Can you disclose it? Absolutely not. It's a confidential thing and you can't disclose it. All right. Now, when you reach we've done live auctions where we reached the reserve. We reached it. And we would go to the seller. And at that point, this bidding is very slow. It's very slow. It's very slow. You're trying to get the bid up. You're trying to get the bid up. And you can go to the seller and say, listen, we've reached a reserve. Can I announce it? Because if I do, then it's absolute from here on out. And you'd be amazed at how that enhances the marketing at that point. So you can keep on going. So it's confidential, basically. Auctioneer continues raising the bid until reserve is reached. We bid 100, now 10, 100,000, now 10, $100,000, now 10, now 10, now 10, now 10, 110, 110, 110, 110, okay? But you can do it all with sealed bids, so we don't have to be a live auctioneer, but anybody can sit here and take live bids. Anybody could do it. You don't have to talk fast. In fact, you shouldn't. You have to be able to do it in real estate. But you continue raising the bids. You're continuously, what you're doing is you made an offer, I want a higher offer. You made an offer, I want a higher offer. You made a higher offer, let's go back to you. That's how it works. Auctioneer may at the time reveal that the reserve has been met if the seller allows it. Okay, if you have that agreement with the seller to start with. Bids above the reserve will be considered high bid. Anything above the reserve. If the reserve is $100,000, we get $100,001. We have met the reserve and we're going to sell it for $100,001. Now, if there's a buyer's premium added to that, well then that's a different thing, but the reserve is X, and we've met it. Now, what does that mean to us? That means we made a sale. That means we made a sale, okay? It means the seller doesn't have to sell, they reserve the right, but they have to pay us if they don't, okay? Because we met the reserve. All right? Auctioneers do not announce the reserve at the beginning of the auction. Why don't we announce a reserve? Here's why, guys. It can discourage competitive bidding. You can say, well, you want $100,000 for this house. I wasn't going to bid that high. So he doesn't bid, okay? Then the next thing you know, nobody bids, and so you don't have an auction. You don't announce the reserve. You may have a $100,000 house with an opening bid of $10,000, and you have 15 bids. All of a sudden, you have 15 bids. All boom, 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 boom. That's an opening bid. That's not a minimum bid. That's not a reserve. That's just an opening bid. Maybe $1, just to get people to bidding. Your whole idea of competitive bidding in the auction business is to get people bidding. If they don't bid, you're not having an auction. You don't want to discourage people from bidding. You announce that there's a reserve auction. You announce the fact that the reserve is confidential between you and the seller. You can't announce what it is. Here's what we have seen many, many times. You take the reserve, you announce the reserve, you discourage people from bidding. If you don't announce the reserve and you get people to bid, and it may not meet the reserve, that seller at least then has an opportunity to say, I'll accept that, just like any other offer that you get. I'll accept that, or I'll renegotiate that after the auction. You say, you got all the cards. Now, see, the owner may be willing to take less than reserve upon receiving substantial bids. They may get a $90,000 bid, and they want 100, and you say, if you'd announced that reserve, you wouldn't have gotten there. You wouldn't have gotten to the 90,000. Now you got a $90,000 bid, so you got a real buyer, potential buyer, and you got a seller, and you're getting close, and you go back to the seller, and you say to them, are you willing to accept that? They have the right to accept or reject, and the seller says, no, but I'll take 95. What are you doing? Now you're going back, the auction's over, and you're negotiating with the highest bidder. And that's all you're doing, is you're working it out like we do every day. May not reach the reserve amount, but would lend itself to further negotiation. That's what this is. We're negotiating. We're negotiating. I got you bidding, and you bidding, and you bidding, and you bidding, and we didn't meet the reserve, but you were the high bidder. Okay, so we'll announce sold to the highest bidder subject to seller confirmation. We write the contract. You're the high bidder. What that means is you have the right to negotiate with that seller first. Okay, you're first. If you're second, you're the backup bidder. All right, and so that's how it works. But you get people committed to an offer. Right, right. So, auctioneers frequently declare after final bid the property in question is sold subject to seller confirmation. Did you get that? It's sold subject to seller confirmation. That is a very important thing, guys. That is very important. The seller must confirm it. So it's like getting any other offer and presenting any other offer that you do. The seller must confirm it. Can y'all see? All right. Auctioneer staff will write a contract with that terminology as a condition and present it to the owner, at which time the owner can accept, reject, or counteroffer. You're using all your marketing tools, guys. You're exacerbating everything that you can about that marketing. You're doing it everything you can to sell that property. If reserve is not met, property may still be purchased, but that is a decision between the buyer, the seller, and the auctioneer. Same thing we do as realtors. We're back to negotiating, but at least we have somebody to negotiate with. We not only have one, we have more than one. We had more than one bid it right up to that amount of money, because it has to, you bid in increments. And what are your increments? Well, you try to keep it at $1,000. You start off at $5,000, and by the time you get closer and closer, you have to dwindle that down, but to keep it going. Even if you're declared the high bidder, doesn't necessarily mean your reserve is met. Seller can refuse in this case. If the terms and conditions of the auctioneer are met, the reserve is met or exceeded, you are the buyer. Are you with it? Now, we talked about two types of auctions. We talked about an absolute auction and we talked about a reserve auction. Totally different. One is you're going to sell it, and the other one is you may sell it. And that's the difference. That's like writing a contingent contract that we do on financing or whatever we do as realtors. So, most real estate auctions are reserve auctions. Are you with that? Most real estate auctions. Get familiar with the terms and conditions. My whole goal here is to get you to, that's become second nature for you to use the auction method of marketing in everything that you do in real estate. Everybody you talk to, become the professional. Become that person that is a go-to person. Why do I get so many referrals? We're the only ones in St. Augustine doing it. Okay? That's why we get so many referrals. I get most of the referrals I get is from my realtor friends. Study the information on the Auctioneers website. Amen. Read printed information and brochure. Understanding can give you an edge on your competitors. When you go to the auction, if you know all about the property and you go in there to bid, you do your research and you especially we realtors representing a client that's a buyer possibly at an auction, we want to know everything about it. If you don't know everything about it, you're not doing a very good job, frankly. And if that person is not sophisticated in doing their research, you can buy something that you don't want, and that happens a lot. So you got to make sure about the guarantees and the warranties and the title and so forth. Send the brochures. What are they offering? Most real estate auctions have no. Some items may be announced to have a reserve. Most real estate auctions do have a reserve. That's a mistake in that. Okay, most real estate auctions do have a reserve. All right, most non-real estate auctions have a reserve. Oh, excuse me. Most non-real estate auctions are absolute, like they do at the auction barn. And so at the auction barn, they selling it. It's sold if they have a reserve here and there. Every once in a while, they have something reserved. But basically, when you go down there and bid on something, you bought it. If you're the high bidder, you own it, and that's good. Great way to bring all types of properties to auction and protect sellers while giving them greatest exposure and the most determined marketing plan. Let me give you one. We're getting a listing on the Intercoastal Waterway now. Just got it. We're going to open that house up day in and day out. Okay, we're going to open house after house. It's right on A1A. As often, as frequently as all of the agents want to. The owner doesn't care. They're all with us. They're all for it. Now, here's what's going to happen from that listing. That listing is going to provide more buyers than all of the money that we could possibly spend in newspaper advertising and promotion. The agent has gone and had special signs made for the house, and so that will begin. That will start next week. We'll start doing open houses down there. All of our team, everybody in this company is welcome to participate and do open houses there, and all these houses that we have. Invariably, you will get people that will come just ride by and see the signs. And the big attraction is the auction sign. That's the big attraction. There'll be plenty of signs down there, but the big attraction will be, what are they giving away there? Do's and don'ts. Do have a written agreement with the seller as to the reserve price and terms. Absolutely. Don't do it otherwise. Put the correct wording that the sellers explicitly reserve the right to accept or reject any and all offers. Don't just say with reserve, folks. The explicit language is they can accept or reject any and all offers. All right. Use reserve auctions and all auctions which have an existing mortgage or other lien on the property that represents at least a minimum. Are you with that? If it's got a $30,000 mortgage on it and you think it's worth $100, and you put it out there to bid, and somebody only bid 20, and you ended up having to sell it, you couldn't sell it because you couldn't pay off the mortgage. Are you with me? I mean, the seller would have to bring his checkbook to the closing. So we don't jeopardize our seller by poor planning. So announce to the public all public auctions or publications or ads of any kind the fact that your auction has a reserve. Absolutely. If you don't announce it and you don't put it in print, the people coming there are going to assume it's an absolute auction and you have just stirred up the hornet's nest. Okay? Don't reveal the price, terms, or conditions of your reserve to anyone. Okay? If you do, you're jeopardizing the seller's right. I don't care who it is, it will leak out, and the next thing you know, some of your agents will tell another agent or tell somebody else, and the next thing you know, it's out there, and even unintentionally, it's there. Tell the buyers that the reserve doesn't matter because the seller is very motivated. Are you going to do that? Assume the public expects your auctions to be with reserve. They do not know. They don't know. Okay? The sophisticated ones know, the others don't know. Assume the public expects your auction to be, set the reserve as high as the asking price or listed price, or you will not have any wiggle room. Don't do all that. That's the don'ts. That's the do's and the don'ts. And now the test. The seller should always set an unrealistic reserve so they are protected regardless. We want that. That's false, because if they set an unrealistic reserve, you're wasting your time. You have no control over that situation whatsoever, and that seller may decide at the last minute, I just really, then they wanted more than it's worth, and you didn't sell it, and so you wasted all that time, energy, and effort, and money. The realtor has a responsibility to announce the reserve price on auction day. True or false? The reserve, that's false. The reserve price and terms should always be lower than the listed price.
Should be the same as, Ken.
No, below. The reserve, you want the low. We can get your sellers more realistic. Most of the realtors go out and list it at the top. They list these properties at the top. So if we go out there and we try that, we're not going to get anywhere. We have to be realistic. You can't be at the top of the food chain there with that. If you do, you're not going to be successful on most of them. You're wasting your time. You're better off just to list it and run it through the normal course. All right. If the reserve price and terms are met, the realtor auctioneer may announce to the public that the reserve has been met and the property will now be sold to the highest bidder, much like an absolute auction. They can't do it without the approval of the seller. Okay, and that approval can be given prior to, so you don't have to wait till auction day to determine that. There is one good-looking guy.
Oh, wow.
Folks, we wrote this course specifically to train realtors how to sell real estate at auction. Okay, how to use a marketing tool. It's the best one I've ever seen, and why we don't have more education and training out there, I don't know. But it's becoming, I went down to the Florida Association meeting with my son, and who's vice chairman of that committee, and realized that there is no training. There is no training out there that you can go to for the Florida Association of Realtors. There wasn't a year ago when I went down there. And so we think we have the only show in town. All right. Now, seal bid auctions, that's what we do. That's what's in the book. And this is what we know that we can teach you how to do without you having to be a professional stand-up auctioneer. And anybody can open an envelope. And that's the whole concept, is to put it together. Use in conjunction with Auction of the Week program for best results. How many auctions can we have on any given day? Unlimited. Unlimited. We could have hundreds of realtors using our system and working with us, and we could have auction day in this office or their office or at the board office or wherever. It doesn't make any difference. We could do it anytime, anywhere. Now, learn how to use this system with what we're doing. It will attract you more attention than anything else. So the question is, when is the auction? As soon as a person sees the sign, they say, tell me about the auction. When is the auction? Well, the auction's next Wednesday at 11 o'clock at 2520 State Road 207, St. Augustine, Florida. That's our office. All right? Now, you want it in your office? Have it in your office. It doesn't make any difference, you see, because the fact is, it's a public auction, and people are invited to come if they want to come to the public auction if you have any bids. You don't know who may come and who may show up. And what we say is that we'll take bids up to 10 o'clock on auction day. And so if we had 10 bids come in on auction day prior to that, and somebody came in at 10:30, we would not accept that bid, okay? We would open the other bids as we said, because you got to have some cutoff time to get the bids in. You know? So, conducted globally on a daily basis. Oh my goodness, all over the country. Guys, girls, this is incredible. If you go on all of the government websites, and you'll find one after the other, after the other, after the other, that you can buy almost anything on these websites and do it using sealed bid. Products everywhere. Using real estate. Realtors and investors make a good living brokering and buying real estate and personal property in sealed bid auctions. You can do it. We can do it together. You can do it. You can learn how to do it and see how it works. But here's what I do know. I know that you have to have a firm understanding of the different types of auctions to be able to conduct this, because if you don't know what you're talking about when you talk to a seller or a buyer, you're not going to get the business, and you can get yourself in a world of hurt. Now, realtors and investors make good living. All right, that's a true statement. Frequently used to market foreclosures, HUD, GSA, bankruptcy courts. Most HUD properties require sealed bid. Read specific requirements to see if you qualify as either potential owner-occupied home or investor at purchasing an investment property. You got to know what you're bidding on. You got to know what the conditions, terms, and conditions of that auction is, regardless of what auction it is. You have to do that. It's an integral part of our program. It is the centerpiece of our program. Okay, for what we're doing in our Auction of the Week program, it is the marketing tool. It is incorporated in it. Why did we do it that way? Because everybody is not going to conduct live auctions. We know that. And so, but all of us can do sealed bid auctions, because even though it has the same legal effect as a live auction, it doesn't have, we don't have to be stand-up auctioneers. We can get past that real fast. We don't have to do that. So, when you receive a sealed bid, you must comply with the terms of the sealed bid. Cannot alter the terms set forth in the sealed bid package. If they do, they have like a conditional offer. That's all it is. They change the terms of it. You give it to them. They can write it down, anything they want right in there. But they're changing the terms of the auction, you see. Sealed bids is an offer to purchase. That's all it is, guys. It's an offer to purchase. In lieu of your sales contract, you got an offer to purchase on the basis of a sealed bid. That's fun. If you attempt to modify the terms, bid will usually be rejected or treated as a non-compliance bid. Has to, you see. Now, for instance, here's what I'm talking about. Let's say you get 3 bids, 3 sealed bids, and they're real close in price, but one modifies it. Two of them are cash, but one of them modifies it for terms. They decide they want financing. They want a conditional. They want a conditional contract. Is what they're looking for. You at that, and even though their offer may be higher, then all of a sudden, the seller gets to make that decision. Are you with me? But if the condition of that contract should suggest that if they don't meet the conditions of the contract, that they're going to lose that deposit, then that seller probably isn't going to accept that, you see, because all they got is a conditional contract, and you've gone through the whole auction process to end up with a conditional contract. But sometimes it's the best you can get. So we don't say don't do it. We just say you got to take the best one. And now you're comparing apples and oranges as far as these offers go or bids go. So terms and conditions determine the compliance requirements. That is just absolutely the fact. That is it, okay? Now, sealed bid is an offer to purchase. If you attempt to modify the terms, you will usually be rejected. Making bids subject to financing or other qualifying factors. That is a change in the sealed bid, unless you structure your sealed bid. Now, see, one thing about the sealed bid, which we're going to get into in another session, is you can structure that sealed bid to be anything you want it to be. You can make it as, you can just write it out, just have fun writing that sealed bid. You can just absolutely stroke yourself with getting that bid put together, sealed bid put together. What do I mean by that? Well, if you don't object to a non-compliant offer, what would typically be non-compliant in the way we did it, which is cash and close in 30 days, and put up a 10% deposit and forfeit that deposit if you don't close, you could put in there that you're selling it subject to financing, blah, 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 whatever conditions you want to put in it, just like any other contract, you could put it in there. Now, why don't we do it? Here's why we don't do it. When that person comes on that property or contacts us about that property, I told you what the qualifying question is. And if you write this down and use it over and over and over and over and over, you will find out that you will enhance your ability to close these deals. Now, you know, when you're writing contracts is great, but if you don't write one that you can close, you're just wasting your time. For instance, now, when we get the seal bid done, you put the seal bid together, and you can absolutely prepare that bid to fit that particular property. And you should. You should give this a lot of thought. In other words, this property may lend itself to owner financing. You may get more money for it. Let's assume it's a piece of property out in the country and the seller says, I'm willing to finance. That's a real enhancement to your marketing. That's a real enhancement. So when you meet with the seller and they're talking about selling the property at auction, you have to ask all these questions. Now you're doing a much better job than the typical real estate agent does at talking to their seller. You're getting down to the bottom line of what they'll really do. What will they really do? Okay? Not what they'd like to do, but what will they really do? And that's what we do. I tell them right up front, let's cut to the chase. What will you really do? Will you own or finance? Okay? Number one, will you own or finance? That's an enhancement to get more money for property typically. Will you lease option? I mean, just anything. All kind of questions that you ask the seller. Will you take less? What is your bottom line? If somebody, here's my question I ask them. Y'all can write this one. It's a good one. If somebody were to write you a check today, what is the bottom dollar that you would take cash in your pocket and sign a deed? All right? Now you're talking about what they would net. What would you possibly take? Now, you know, it's up to you and your decision, but what I'd like to know from you is what would you take today if somebody wrote you a check for cash and close in the next 30 days? What would you take? Because that's really what you're going to get. If you have an auction that's a cash auction, your bottom line is what will that seller take? Not what they said, but what will they take, you see. And we're not trying to push the price down, don't misunderstand me. We're just trying to find out where they are coming from and what they're thinking is, because making a bid subject to qualifying, hey, sometimes we're glad to get one. If it's subject to qualifying, that may be the best bid we had all day, you know, and that's fine. That's just like getting any other offer. Then some people have to have qualifying. If they submit with the qualifying, and that's why you can structure your sealed bid to where they had to bring you proof of funds or proof of financing or proof of pre-approval, not pre-qualifying, but actual pre-approval for a loan, an X number of dollar amount, then you could do it. So just think about it. Think through the process, because when you structure this stuff, it's very important. But the seal bid, now we've talked about the absolute auction, how to use it in a seal bid, how to use it live auction, but most of it's going to be seal bid. You can utilize it in there. You can use the reserve auction, but in the story that we're going to be telling everybody, it's the seal bid auction. So let's assume that you need financing. If I know that you need financing, Mr. and Ms. Customer, this is what I'm going to say. If you write a contract that's acceptable to the seller prior to the auction, we will cancel the auction. Okay? Or take any bids that we get as backups. Are you with me? Now here's what this does. It encourages that buyer to make a decision. Next Wednesday's not far off. I don't care if it's this Wednesday. Next Wednesday's only a week off. You got a week to make a decision. Somebody else may buy it. All right. If you don't buy it, there could be another sealed bid. You may miss a golden opportunity. So it's not a pressure point, but it's an opportunity for you to create an urgency for them to make a decision. And it may disqualify you from being declared the bid winner, even if you're the high bidder. That's a big statement. All right, the do's and the don'ts, guys and girls, of the sealed bid auction. And this is a biggie because you're going to use this more than anything else, the sealed bid. You're going to use it because you can use it constantly. Do you utilize sealed bids auction on a daily basis? Absolutely. Okay? If you can get that, took us a while to get that, how to do that. And the concept is simple. Structure your sealed bid to include other applicable options such as minimum bid, absolute, etc. So you can take your sealed bid and you can do anything you want to with it. That's what I'm saying. But you got to structure it to fit the particular property or the particular offering, frankly, you know. And utilize sealed bid auctions with your auction of the week program. Praise the Lord, absolutely. You see, when I tell you that you can enhance everything you're doing in real estate by proper utilization of the sealed bid, I mean that for sure. Okay. Now, when we go down to Crescent Beach and we open that house up, we're going to get people that we have never seen. We're going to get tire kickers. We're going to get nosy neighbors. We're going to get all kind of people because when they see that word auction, they think you're going to give the house away. But the main thing is you're going to create more activity for that house than you can create any other way. We have a couple of really nice listings that they've been doing open houses on. You get 3 or 4 people every weekend, every time they do it. You know, and invariably people walk in the door, they want to know about the auction. They didn't even see this real estate sign, they saw the auction sign. All right. So utilize sealed bid auctions with the Auction Week program. Amen. Use the sealed bid to establish continuity in your auction marketing endeavors. What that means is by using the sealed bid and utilizing a specific time for the auction every week here at 11 o'clock, we've established some things that are paramount, they're required. Number one is what kind of auction you have. We're having a reserved sealed bid auction in this office every Wednesday. That's a blanket statement. Every property that we get, that the owners will agree to it, we put it right into our sealed bid reserve auction program. Okay, and the sealed bid auction date, you got to have a date. The date is 11 o'clock on Wednesday in this office. You got to have a date and a place for the auction. What happens if you don't sell it? Just keep right on going. It's a perpetual marketing motion that is never, ever, I've never heard of it being created, utilized in the auction method of marketing before. I've never heard of it before. Nobody else has. And so I think we've created a brand new endeavor, thanks to my good friend Jim Rorty back here, who was the guy that had the 71 people through the house in 6 weeks. All right. Now, don't place your listing up for auction after all else fails. Put it up first, guys. Put it up first. Put it up first. Here's why. You're going to just literally suck the ether out of everybody else's marketing. We had one house out here. It was in Royal St. Augustine, and we had an agent that he just was a part timer, and he would go there and put the signs out, and hold an auction, hold an open house. And invariably he would have people come. So one day he noticed there was an elderly lady standing in the back of the room, and she waited till everybody else left. And she said to him, she said, "Sir, do you mind me asking you a question?" She said, "What are you doing different than my agent?" And He said, ma'am, I don't know what you're talking about. She said, I've had my house listed down the street here for 5 or 6 months, and it's been shown one time. And here, every time I look down the street, you've got cars lined up everywhere showing this house to people. And we thought, that's it. That's it. That's what it's all about. That's what we're doing. It's a marketing opportunity like none other I've ever seen. So he was able to tell her, we can do the same thing with yours, you know. We'd be glad to work with your agent. The agent's never heard of such a thing, you see. So we don't care who it is. If somebody got a house they want us to help with, here we come. Not a problem, you know. We can do it. So don't do absolute sealed bid auctions unless you have a collected upfront marketing fee. Don't do it. If you do, you're going to eat a lot of them, okay? Unless you have an absolute auctions. If you want to eat it, that's your choice. They don't go down. It doesn't digest very well. Plan sealed bid auctions without adequate open house schedules. Don't do it. Don't do it. Okay? I'm telling you now how to milk this situation. Milk it, milk it, milk it, milk it, milk it. I would much rather have all of the agents in this company sitting in an open house than I had them sitting in this office waiting for the phone to ring. If the phone rings, we'll get you the call. Okay? The phone rings, we don't want the call, we'll get you the call. But the point is, I know this, if you had 10 agents sitting open houses 2 or 3 times a week, we would have 20 or 30 new potential buyers, customers in this office every week. What kind of, I mean, why not? Why not do that? Here's open house. Do I have to run a big ad? Nope. What do I use? I use signs. When do I do the open house? When I want to. If it's vacant, okay? When do I do the open house? Can I go do it 2 hours Saturday and 2 hours Monday and 2 hours, can I do it in the morning? Can I do it in the evening? Can I do 4 in one day? Can I do 4 different open houses in one day? Absolutely. Absolutely. There was a realtor down at Celestine Shores a few years ago. He did the best open house schedule thing I'd ever seen. He'd do 4 open houses in a day. He would start at 10 o'clock in the morning, go to 12, he'd go grab a quick sandwich and go from 1 to 3, and he'd take it right on up till 6 o'clock in the afternoon. He would do 4 open houses in one day. Okay? Now, suppose he was doing 4 auction open houses in one day. Be a different story. Failure to provide the statement, this is a reserve auction, let's just absolute. Okay, don't. Here is your little test. Sealed bid auctions level the playing field for realtors to utilize the auction method of marketing more frequently. Praise the Lord, absolutely true. Okay, please preach it, teach it, and talk about it because it's the truth. Structure your sealed bid to fit the property and the occasion. Absolutely. Fix it like you want it. Sit down and do it. It's your offering and you do it. Sealed bid auctions are not very popular and are very rarely used. False. I don't know who helped me make up all these lies. Auctions of the week sealed bid format can be held in any realtor's office or designated place. True, guys. True. Why? You realize this could be going on all over the country? I mean, at the same time? Opening the sealed bid is a clerical task. Okay? I mean, literally anybody can sit here and open the sealed bid. And so, how you get the sealed bid is another thing we'll show you. Part of what we teach. Now, it's hammered down with Terry Pizzetti auction method of real estate marketing. Why not give it a try? You see, there's no reason not to give it a try. It's something that, we created this little system. But sealed bid auctions, live auctions, all that's been around way before me. And they've been selling real estate at auction for years and years and years and years. And the realtors can do it too. Okay, now we're getting into something different. Here is something that we could all do, and that we probably ought to consider. It's called minimum bid auctions. You want to make a sale? You just have an open house and you post the minimum bid in the house. Just put it right in there. Minimum bid. Now, what does that mean to you and me? This is when you negotiate with your seller and you get that price to where the minimum is, if you're handing them a brochure that says the MLS price is 100,000, but the minimum bid is 70. All right? Now, do you think that house should have ever been priced at 100,000 to start with? That person wants to sell that house. The answer is no. No. Now, so the minimum bid, when you post it and somebody comes in and it makes an offer of $1 more than the minimum bid, you have made a sale. You have made a sale. What this is going to allow you to do is be way more professional than we typically are in our approach to the seller and how we can best handle them, help them. What are we doing for them? What are we doing for them, or what are we doing to them? We don't want to do anything to them. We want to do something for them, okay? And so our program is we're going to help them market this property. They're in the decision-making process. So if they say minimum bid, that is their decision. They could have said reserve. They could have said absolute. But now they're saying minimum bid. But you can't, they're not going to do that unless you educate them about what you're talking about. You have to know what you're talking about before you can explain it to them. And that's the purpose of this course. You see, that's the purpose of it. Because getting trained in the field to sit down and talk to a seller intelligently, say, listen, we have multiple choices about the different types of auctions that we can do. One is we can do an absolute auction, which means we are going to sell it. If you're going to do that, I want you to put up $5,000 to $10,000 up front for us to promote it with. I will make you up a budget and show you when and how we're going to spend the money. All right? It's a stepped process. This is the business plan. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do. I have a whole outline, guys, for you guys to do the whole auction. I mean, from the time you talk to the person, do you put up the first sign? Do you do the whole thing? It's a stepped process. And you got to follow it. If you don't follow it, you'll find yourself at the last minute scrambling, trying to do things that you should have done a long time ago. All right. So you understand about the minimum bid. Minimum bid is what the seller is willing to take. Now, that's a retail price. In other words, that includes your commission or whatever. If not, you've got to disclose that minimum bid with the buyer's premium. It's okay. You can do it either way, but you don't quote net prices. Is my point. You got to come up with the right price. Now, so if you take a $100 item, for instance, the minimum bid is $30. Auctioneer cannot take a bid less than $30. So we're not going to take less than $30. So I'm sure y'all probably use this too occasionally. Is if somebody says I got to get $30 for this item, but it's really worth $100. Anything above $30, I'll sell it. So it's kind of a reserve, except you're announcing the reserve. This is the minimum bid. You see the difference? Minimum bids or low opening bids frequently used. You start wherever you can. If you're having a live auction, you start wherever you get people to bid. I start high and work myself down. Now, the do's and don'ts. Do get familiar with online auction sites, which allow realtors who are not licensed auctioneers to place real estate listing on their site. Right? So you can sell real estate at auction by being a real estate agent or a real estate broker or a real estate company. Utilize the benefits of the online auction that is duplicatable. What do we mean by that? Here's what that means. 1 listing, 2 listings, 5 listings, 10 listings, whatever you know, just put them up there. And if you set the minimum bid or the reserve, you're protected. You're protecting your seller. So you can put them up there. And just suppose you make another sale from it, or you generate more customers just for sitting down for a few minutes and putting it up there, coming up with the terms and conditions of you're having an auction. You remember now, you're having an auction when you put it up there, and so you got to do it correctly. You have to have the right due diligence. You have to have the right disclosures and so forth. So to make it work. Duplicatable is one of the biggest words in my career. To me, that is an incredible word. Duplication, duplicate, duplicatable. Everything that I'm doing in the rest of my life is going to be hopefully duplicatable. Everything that I apply my time and attention and love and concern to is going to hopefully be duplicatable. What I mean by that is I hope them kids of mine will get some more grandbabies. Only got 8. No, seriously, you think about what I said. When you can multiply or duplicate anything that we're doing to the benefits of others and consequently to our own benefit. Zig Ziglar made the greatest statement I believe I've ever heard. If you'll help enough other people get what they want, you'll get what you want. And I believe that's absolutely true. And I believe if you don't do that, then you're probably on a short track. And so when I think about this and this course and what I think it could mean to the realtors all over the country, a lot of states will allow you to do it. Some states won't allow it, but a lot of them do. Establish a relationship with the professional licensed real estate auctioneer so that you can place your listings on other sites. That's me. Have live auctions to run concurrently with your online auctions. You can do all kinds of things. You can create all kind of opportunity. You can take the property off the auction. You can stop the auction. You can do whatever. You can withdraw it. You can sell it. While you're doing it, you can sell it. Somebody comes along and gives you a contract, gives you an offer, you can sell it. And if you got that customer from them, then you have to pay them, or the seller has to pay them. Don't put unreasonable expectations on the online auction site. You're not going to get 10 times as much. These people are looking for a bargain like everybody else, but they may not have what you're looking for on there. You may just have just exactly what they're looking for. Attempt to do this until you have been thoroughly trained. Do not attempt to do this until you're thoroughly trained, so properly utilize the site. Start with very high minimum bids. Don't do all this, okay? Don't. Don't confuse your seller with the difference between opening bid and minimum bid. That's probably the biggest, most misunderstood thing I can think of, is you see people say, we were at the courthouse one time, and there was they were having a foreclosure auction, and this elderly couple walked by, and the bank bid $1, but they were owed $200,000 or $300,000. They bid $1. Nobody bid. She said, grabbed her husband by the arm. She said, "I told you we should have gotten here earlier. That people got that house for $1." And
I know that old lady.
And they didn't. They didn't get it for $1. But the point is that that's all she heard was that house sold for $1. The banks bid them back in as low as they can get them if they're going to get them back in to save the stamps. They have to pay the stamps on the deed, on the minimum if they do that. So, a test. Online auctions only work if you start with a low opening bid. That can be true or false. I mean, that can be true because you got to get a bid. And you go online and you'll see a lot of them put very low opening bids, and they do it to get a bid. Now, can be counterproductive because you have an awful hard job changing the mentality of a person that may otherwise have been a buyer if you hadn't lowballed it to start with. So I like backing them down myself. Online auctions give you an instant international audience. That is true. Online auctions require the same promotion expense as a live auction.
False.
Well, basically it's true if you're going to do, depends on the kind of job you're going to do. In other words, when you put it on online, you're going to pick up some of their marketing, but if you don't market it on a local basis, you're still messing up. In other words, you still need to, depends on what you're doing. If you're going to do an absolute auction, you better spend this. You better promote it the same way. If you're going to do one with reserve, then you obviously can do it differently. But frankly, it's if you're going to put one up today, I would say you want to hit it on all of the free sites. You want to hit it on the Craigslist. You want to hit it on the Facebook. You want to hit it on all those sites that you can get thousands all over the country also to look at it, because the word auction drags them in, draws them in. It's a tool. Online auctions require the same promotion. We just covered that. Online auctions suggests the realtor auctioneer is liable for the cost of placing the property on the site.
Yes.
False.
we don't accept any responsibility for putting that property on the site. It's not, we're not paying for that. It's a free site. Now, if we had to, if we have to pay for the site, and some of them you do, if you have to pay for it or you pay them to advertise it, then you need to collect that money from the seller. All right, because you can, so they're different. They're all different. You know, like one that we went to, if you're going to really promote it on their site, you've got to spend, you got to buy their advertising, and they have a huge network. They give you a little bit for free, and then after that you got to pay. But
Which ultimately, the realtor auctioneer is liable for the payment through the seller.
if you're the one that's on the site, you're responsible. To participate as a realtor auctioneer on site requires that you join as a member of that site prior to placing your listing. That's true. It's true. Most of them are free. Okay, so if you join a free site, you can do it. And the auction method marketing, going once, going twice, sold. You know, people just love that chant. They love that, hear that person. They love to hear it go, you know. And I love doing it. I mean, I love the auctions. It's fun. For a change for me, when I went in 1990 to auction school, I saw something that was fun about the real estate business. I saw something different. I saw something that was invigorating. It was exciting. You know, we could build enthusiasm in this room. We could have a couple of you guys standing up here taking bids and encouraging the crowd, and the auctioneers standing up here begging, higher offer, give me a high, you know, save my job, save me. And but it's fun. So live auctions. This is the one that we've used the most, frankly, until we came up with the seal bid thing. If you'll get a house and you'll get a budget for it, the money to spend to advertise it, we can do it on site, live auctions on site, or we can do it here, or we can do it in a ballroom. We can do it wherever. You know, we're working on some things now. If we get these auctions set up, there'll be live auctions probably, and have to be in a ballroom or somewhere to make it work because it's land. Name a date, time, and place to offer a property at auction. Allow plenty of time for planning, advertising, promoting. 2 months. Okay, can you do it sooner? Yeah, you can. You can, but it takes instant focus if you do, because you got to build a brochure, you got to build an electronic brochure, you got to get a printed brochure, you got to really start promoting it, and it's a lot of work. Remember, it's a lot of work. Somebody has to do it, a lot of work to get an auction done. Live auctions have been going on for years. In Australia, I understand, most homes are sold at auction. They'll have Saturday afternoon sale and sell it one house right after the other, right after the other, right after the other at live auctions. And to me, that was amazing that, you know, the realtors over there, I think, all sell them at auction. So I'm told.
But Terry, it's different over there, the realtor system. The banks are the realtors there, like they are at home in England.
Well, it's all different, but
Yeah.
it's, anyway, most personal property, farm equipment, livestock, etc. is sold at live auction. Go to a cattle auction, guys. Go to a cattle auction. I'm driving down the highway out, I don't know where I was at, Montana somewhere, and I saw a live cattle auction. Drove right in there. Listened to the auctioneers. They didn't understand one thing they ever said. But they were selling cows, you know. They were selling cows. It was just great. It's fun. So build some enthusiasm back into your marketing with this. Do it. Most personal property, most estates are liquidated through the auction. Plenty of them do it every week, once or twice a week. That's where most of their stuff comes from, that they're selling down at the auction house. If seal bid auctions don't produce satisfactory results, go to a live auction. You see, we don't have to settle for one. If one doesn't work, we don't have to settle for that. That's a good thing. Now, when you start promoting a property for auction, or for sale period, and you start promoting for auction, and you promote it one way, you're building a platform, guys. You're building enthusiasm, you're building information, you're building all kind of advertising promotion if you're doing it on especially on the free sites. If it doesn't work this way, be prepared that we can always elevate the marketing by the upfront marketing budget and promoting the site. And we can do a live auction, or we can do a, sealed bid auction, but we can change. We can switch horses in the middle. Somebody says, if you don't sell the house here next Wednesday, what happens? We keep on going. But the seller calls you up and says, did you get any bids? And the answer is no. Why didn't you get any bids? Because it's not promoted as it should be for an auction, all right? In other words, this was a low budgeted opportunity to utilize the auction method of marketing. Big statement. Low budgeted opportunity to utilize the auction method of marketing in everything that we do. Every listing that we get, that the owner, some owners say, oh no, you're not going to do that in my house, But 90% of them will let you do it. And if you ask realtors that, they would, 90% of them would tell you the sellers won't let you do it. Okay? Because they're, in their mind, they're giving the house away. That's the concept that they have. We know that it's the illusion of a bargain, and it's a marketing thing. So, we can switch gears. Anytime we want to switch gears. We can go from one kind of auction to another kind of auction if we want to. If you want to, you can do it. So you're not wasting any time if you start off with the minimum bid, with the sealed bid auction in our offices. How it works: determine the date, time, and location of the auction. Take about 2 months of preparation. Can be done in less time, but not recommended. You're going to get situations where people don't have any more time. They don't have the time. They'll come to you at the last dying minute, expect you to work a miracle. Take a few weeks to get paperwork ready and get properly posted on the internet. If you're going to do the auction method of marketing, I would appreciate if y'all would use that same color sign so we all benefit from the idea that we're introducing auction marketing. Okay, for instance, that sign back there is as good a sign as there is. There is not a better one. All right. That sign, those signs are very inexpensive, and we can put them wherever. We got a little bit different version of that we use. But build a trail to the house. Build a trail. Put some of them in the right of way. You're going to lose them, but put them in there anyway. Okay, because your cost of promotion for this is so much less expensive than anything else that we do. The auction process begins. It's a process, guys. It's a process. The minute you start, you're starting the process. Paperwork prepared. Auction date set. Signs ordered. How do you set an auction date until you know that you can pull it off? All right, for instance, sometimes you get some of these sign companies that drag things out. This happens and that happens. You got to be prepared. You got to move. You can't wait till the last dying minute to order the signs or whatever you're doing. And so, just do it. Place signs on the property indicating the date and time of the auction. The sign back there says Wednesday at 11 o'clock. It doesn't have a date on it. We can put a date on it. Change the date every week. But if you're going to have a live auction, you got to put big signs on it and do it. Seller must be required to put up X number of dollars depending on region and type of marketing that is necessary. If you're going to have a live auction, it's a requirement. It's not a question about it, it's a requirement. For me, get a tech-savvy person to build and post a good listing. Praise the Lord, hallelujah. Casey. These are things that we learned the hard way. Some of the things we learned in auction school, but a lot of things we learned by trial and error. Auction day. You can hire an auctioneer, but it's not required. But until you get good at it, you need to hire an auctioneer. Good idea to hire an auctioneer until you understand everything. Do not have to speak quickly. You don't have to talk fast. Okay? Just play some auctioneer music and get the tune up. Realtors can take bids. We'll have a microphone and we'll be in charge of the auction. We can stand here with a microphone. I can hand it to you. You can take the bid. All you got to do is just keep on bidding and bidding and bidding, talking people into bidding and bidding it up until you get what you want, or until it stops. All right? And then you find ring men, ring women too. You know, people work what they call working the ring. It's exciting. It's create the excitement.
What are they doing when they're creating, what are you saying that they do?
You start to bid, and Justin starts to bid. One ring person comes over and you say $10,000, and the other one's over there, and Justin, he had bid 9, now he's asking for 11, and back and forth. And it's just exciting. And then I announced that, hey, anybody can bid, we don't discriminate, anybody can bid, just step up to the plate. Announce starting to a minimum bid in advance. If you got a starting bid, start it wherever you want to. You want to use a minimum bid, you can use that. If you use a minimum bid, you're stuck with it. Keep reserve to yourself. Okay? If it's a minimum bid and you announce the minimum bid, you effectively announce reserve because you're saying you'll sell it. Announce that this is a reserve auction and any bid is subject to the final approval of the seller. That's a fact. Usually a buyer's premium is added. Deposits taken on auction day are usually non-refundable. Okay? Here's why. Person puts up $5,000 or $10,000 for an auction, the auctioneer, real estate people, go out and do months worth of work and 2 months worth of work and put into all this. Next thing you know, you literally have thousands of dollars in it. You get a crowd of people out there, somebody is a high bidder, and then they walk on you. You can't have another auction next week. You got to go start all over the whole process, and it's expensive and difficult. Buyer's premium. Y'all understand what that means? It means that on top of the bid, there will be a premium added. This all has to be announced. It all has to be part of your brochure, part of your announcements. Because what you're telling the buyer, if you bid $100,000 and there's a 6% buyer's premium, you're going to pay $106,000 for it. So the contract price is $106,000. Auctions do not usually offer owner financing and are not subject to financing. Typically, they're cash and close in 30 days. Does it have to be that way? No. The do's and the don'ts. Do plan your auction at least 60 days in advance. Prepare an advertising budget and collect an adequate amount of money up front. We keep talking about that over and over and over because if we don't get that, say, I thought I was a great salesman, that I could have these auctions and get this done, no problem. And I would put up the upfront money for the promotion. Did I ever eat some of that? Don't do it. Use the services of a professional real estate auctioneer until you're comfortable with the process. Don't rely on your inexperience initially. Don't get in trouble with it. The worst thing you can do is embarrass yourself or get yourself in financial trouble. Approach your seller with an upfront request for marketing funds without having made a written budget plan. This is for your live auction. Don't do that. Don't do that. They're going to ask you how much it's going to cost. You can talk to them and say, listen, we'll develop this budget with you. We want to find out what you think about the marketing and so forth, and we'll give you the benefit of our experience. So we would go there with a printout of information that we had from the Florida Times Union, St. Augustine Record, whoever we were going to advertise with, and we'd make that decision, you see. Now, don't undertake a real estate auction of any type without established reserve price and terms. If it's a reserve auction, okay? If you don't do that, you're going to get yourself in a world of hurt. Establish the date of the auction until you are confident that your signs and any other material necessary to conduct the auction is available and leaving you a minimum of 6 weeks to plan and conduct your auction. This is your final test for today. Live auctions should be used in conjunction with a well-planned and executed schedule. That's true. In addition to your standard listing contract, you should have the seller execute a separate auction agreement including the reserve price and the receipt of the upfront marketing funds.
Yes.
That is absolutely true. Now, don't deviate from that. Live auctions are simple and do not require any professional training. Lenny does. Auction brochures must include the fact that the auction is a reserve auction unless it is absolute. You got to put it in there. It's one or the other. It's one type of auction or another. So you're determining the type of auction that you're going to use whenever you do this. All right? I'm going to leave some of this stuff to go to the next session, and So I wanted to tell all of you, I appreciate you coming. Now, I want you to come back and go take the whole course, because what you've seen today is only part of it, and it takes a lot more than this for you to be able to conduct your own auction. The goal is, remember, our intent is for you to be able to put together your own auctions, right? Here in our company and here in the other real estate companies or whatever, is for you to be able to do it. We'll coach you and help you and work with you and co-op with you and anything else that works for everybody. We're more than willing to do it.